Sermon number 10, entitled Na'aseh V'Nishma, What It Means to be Jewish. A young female Reformed rabbi and a middle-aged Orthodox rabbi are walking along a river in Strasbourg, France. The Reformed rabbi previously was a student of the Orthodox rabbi. Each of them has just officiated at funerals in the one Jewish cemetery in Strasbourg, this being her first funeral. She has been through a challenging first month as a rabbi in town at the Reformed synagogue, having to decide how to address some difficult, quote, liberal Jewish issues, such as an interfaith couple's ambivalence about a Brit Milah, and most recently, an older man's conflict about whether to accede to his mother's clear request to be cremated once she has passed. Please note that both the conservative and reform movements allow cremation to honor the deceased's wishes. She says to her former teacher as they stroll along to distance themselves emotionally from their funeral rites, something like, "Our job is to complete certain gestures and then find the meaning from them." And the Orthodox rabbi simply responds, "Oui, na'aseh v'nishma." This is very Jewish. This is a scene from the new TV show called Reformed, which is the Jewish equivalent and even better than the Rev, Rabbi Patrick. As I now am just a few months from my smicha and continue to see my own rabbinic identity emerge, I'm asking myself this controversial question. What most defines us? What most defines us as Jews, as a religious people? And I'm concluding that Na'aseh v'Nishma is at the very core of it. We do first, and then we learn and find meaning from the doing. And perhaps the doing of mitzvot helps to create meaning in our lives. Said somewhat differently, mitzvot are actions, and the regular doing of mitzvot is the foundation that creates our faith or belief. And whether a Jew ever gains faith or belief in God, it is our doing of the mitzvot, broadly defined, that defines our Judaism, our Jewish identity. A type of litmus test of this for me is when I'm asked by a non-Jew what Judaism is about. I almost always find myself answering not about what we believe, but about what we do and why we do it. We observe Shabbat as a day of rest to remember that God created the world in 6 days, and because we're commanded to do so. We have a Seder on Passover to remember that with a mighty hand God brought us out of Egypt, and because we're commanded to do so. We fast on Yom Kippur to ask for forgiveness from God and atone for our sins, and because we are commanded to do so. Daniel Hartman, in his recent book, Who Are the Jews and Who Can We Become?, argues that we have two differing covenants that define Jewish collective identity. In the Genesis covenant, Jewish collective identity is grounded in who one is and the group to which one belongs, independently of what one believes and or does. The Exodus covenant, conversely, is grounded in one's relationship to an aspirational system of values, ideals, beliefs, commandments, and behaviors. And I'm quoting Rabbi Hartman. According to Hartman, Exodus Judaism is based on a, quote, reciprocal covenant of divine aspiration and human response. And this moment is God's call to action for the Jewish people, quote, to respond as Abraham did and forge a new path of intimacy with the divine. Just as Abraham's Lech Lecha moment was an individual commitment to action, so too was the Israelites' commitment collectively to Na'aseh v'nishma. As Hartman notes, Judaism is not a spectator sport. To become an Exodus Jew, we are challenged to, quote, find our commandment. As I've matriculated now through 2.5 years of the PRS rabbinic program, I'm now coming to the conclusion that consistent and regular ritual practice, whether it be laning the Torah or participating and leading daily minyan or helping to make a Shiva minyan, all of this has become my way of finding my commandment. As I've shared in other Divrei Torah, the learning that has flowed from my curiosity about these regular practices has not only given me a body of knowledge about our rituals that I previously lacked, but has also lighted the runway of a derech for my ongoing rabbinate. Do mitzvot, and while doing so, learn the whys and the wherefores of the ritual or the mitzvot. Learn to be able to teach or communicate or advise, not just to learn in a vacuum. A second thought about Jewish identity that watching Reformed has triggered in my mind is that Judaism and Jewish practice is also defined by our commitment to the ongoing interpretation of our tradition. In fact, the entire project of Rabbinic Judaism is based on interpretation, and it is through interpretation that Judaism continues to grow and thrive in modernity. Answering questions like, is impossible beef kosher? Heck, is impossible pork kosher? Or even when and whether a Zoom minyan is valid. These types of questions are vehicles for Jewish interpretation to continue to thrive and underscore the fact that interpretation is essentially about Jewish innovation. Rabbinic Judaism itself was our religious innovation to cope with the exigency of the destruction of the temple. The rabbis themselves understood the importance of innovation and must have seen innovative interpretation as both a good and necessary outcome from Chevruta study. Quoting from Shagiga 3a:15, the sages taught, there was an incident involving Rabbi Yohanan ben Beroka and Rabbi Elazar ben Hizma when they went to greet Rabbi Yehoshua in Pekin. Rabbi Yehoshua said to them, what novel idea was taught today in the study hall? They said to him, we are your students. We drink from your water. All of our Torah knowledge comes from you. And therefore, how can we tell you something you have not already learned? He said to them, even so, there cannot be a study hall without a novelty. Well, I'm viewing the novelty of my study hall to be finding a new source of interpretation from an unlikely place. Rabbi Leah in a streaming series on HBO Max. And one that is quite applicable to contemporary issues that both independent rabbis and rabbis from more liberal denominations might find useful. For example, Rabbi Leah's use of the Akedah in her argument to the non-Jewish dad in favor of Brit Milah was certainly one I hadn't heard before. Or her explanation that the covering of Noah's nakedness by Shem and Japheth in honoring their father was the original inspiration of the Talit. And her explanation and enactment of the Kriya at the mom's funeral was both powerful and could have been a training video for new rabbis. Mishnah Moed Katan 3:7 states that, quote, rending for father and mother is a rending of all his garments until he bares his heart. This is exactly what the son does in that episode of the show. Not only baring his heart physically, but emotionally as well. And so, from all of this doing of ritual, if we continue to strive to both understand the meaning of the rituals and not be afraid to thoughtfully innovate, to compassionately meet the human needs of the communities we serve, we will be acting as all of the Israelites committed to do at Sinai. Na'aseh v'nishma. Toda Rabah.